Joining us now to talk about being Muslim in India, the veteran journalist and columnist Saeed Naqvi. He is also Distinguished Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation in New Delhi and the host of an interview program called In Conversation, which is what we're going to do for the next 15 minutes or so. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
Good. Okay. I want to put some numbers up, first of all, because I think some of what we're going to talk about today is going to be a surprise to our viewers. First of all, this from the CIA fact book. Here's the religious breakdown in India. Hindus, of course, more than 80% of the population. Muslims, almost 13.5% of the population. Christians, just over 2. Sikhs, almost 2. Other, 1.8. Indonesia, we know, is the largest Muslim country in the world by population, but India is second, which I think many people do not know. 170 million Muslims in India. More than 1 billion people in India in total, but 170 million are Muslims. And here's the map and an indication by district of where the largest concentrations live. 25% of the population in districts across the north, a few pockets in the south. More generally, Muslims are large minorities in districts across India. So just so we get a better understanding of what that map tells us, can you describe generally what Muslim communities in India are like?
Firstly, what we ought to know is that there is no such thing as a monolithic Muslim community.
It's not a homogeneous thing.
I am more comfortable with you here with Steve Bacon in Ontario, Toronto, than I might be with somebody in Ramanathapuram in Tamil Nadu who might be a Muslim.
Why is that?
Because he will speak a language, which is Tamil, which I can't speak. And he will not be able to speak any other language.
Not Urdu, not Hindi?
Not Urdu, not Hindi, not at all. Therefore, you have regional entities. In Kerala, you people will speak Malayalam. They may understand some Hindi because of the wide spread of Hindi, what we call Bollywood, Indian cinema.
Sure.
That has been a great equalizer.
But you and I are going to hit it off because we have English in common.
We have, yes, someone said, I think it was Oscar Wilde who said about America and Britain, he says two countries divided by a common language.
Very good. Yes. Now, we know there is a caste system in India, and I wonder how Muslims fit into that picture.
Well, Muslims, in fact, that is part of the syncretic culture of India. That, let me give you a figure which you have, which is not there. Had there been no partition, of the subcontinent,
We're going back to 1947.
Okay. When India became independent and was partitioned on the same day.
Pakistan and
India. Yeah. Now, had the partition not taken place, you would have had in the vicinity of 500 million Muslims in subcontinent, that Indian subcontinent area, the larger one, including Sri Lanka, and if you include, say, Afghanistan, then certainly much more than that.
And it would have then been the biggest.
Which would have been more than all of the Arab countries right up to the Maghreb. Mm-hmm. Had that not happened, you would have had this huge 500 million Muslim as an engine, as a big engine for modernity and moderation. Why would that be so? Because they would grow up in the crucible of a very tolerant crucible of Hinduism.
Okay, but it didn't turn out that way, and it is the way. Instead of 500 million, it's 170 million in India. And I wonder, given that they are minorities almost wherever they live, how well do they get on with other ethnic groups?
Again, there's a figure here, because not only the Indian history is very peculiar. I'll come back to you. I'm not. I'm simply giving you more furniture for your ideas there. The Indian Muslim story is the following. He was the ruler, he ruled. When the British came, they took over the baton of power from the Mughal emperor, whom they then pushed away to Rangoon, where he was imprisoned in the garage of a junior British officer called Davis, which is where he died, the last Mughal emperor. Dalrymple has written a book on that one, William Dalrymple. Now, then he was the ruled, 200 years of British rule in India. Then he is now a stakeholder in a huge democratic scramble in which Muslims and various castes of Hinduism and this and the Sikhs and the Christians and the tribals, they're all making a big scramble. They're all in a scrum trying to get as big a piece of that pie as possible. That is the Muslim predicament. He has a history, he has a past, then there was an intermediate past, and now there's the present.
Well, let me read this from the Council on Foreign Relations, which is 3 years old, but it still hangs true today. Are Muslims marginalized in India? Yes. The Muslim literacy rate ranks well below the national average, and Muslim poverty rates are only slightly higher than low-caste Hindus, according to a November 2006 government report. Muslims, mostly Sunnis, make up 13.4% of India's population, yet hold fewer than 5% of government posts and make up only 4% of the undergrad student body in India's elite universities. The report also found that Muslims fall behind other groups in terms of access to credit, despite the fact that Muslims are self-employed at a far higher rate than other groups. So why are Muslims so far behind?
Several reasons. One is that they suffered the status reversal because of the history that I indicated to you. There was the weaker you are in a historical situation, the greater your tendency to fall back on your larger myths. Once upon a time, we were this. You follow? The Britannia ruled the waves. Now that nostalgia is dying in Britain. Similarly, it took a while for the Muslim to readjust to the new realities. That's one. Secondly, you see, it is said that you educate a boy and he goes and gets a job. You educate a woman and she educates the family. Women's education has been abysmally poor among Muslims. This goes back into the status of women in Muslim society, even in the past, even in India. It's getting out of it. There are enlightened Muslims, there are Muslim leaders, there are Muslim scholars, there are Muslim thinkers, journalists. But by and large, the position of women in Muslim society, and particularly those who form the majority today. Don't forget, we were a feudal order. There was an elite. In the elite, the women knew 5 languages. You asked me just now before this program, how many languages do I know? My mother, she can claim to speak 3 or 4 languages.
And you're
because
3.
I know only 3, because she was taught Arabic and she was taught Persian and she spoke Awadhi, which was the local language in the area where she lived.
Does this not happen anymore, the education?
The elite has declined. And you have now a vast majority of people. The poorer people in Indian society are more religious. And therefore, you have this section. The elite, a lot of it went away to Pakistan.
Okay, but tell me this, because I think it's fair to say that the Muslim population of India is far less radicalized than it is in other Asian countries. To what do you attribute that?
One is, as I told you, that there's been this syncretic element with the Hindu. They shared the same songs, they wrote the same poetry. Do you know something? The Lord Ram is a Hindu god. I mean, he is the most revered of the mythological figures in Hindu, Ram. But the greatest Sanskrit poetry on Ram was written by a Muslim ruling class, you see? Because he liked the idea, he liked the myth of Lord Rama. And without changing his religion, he gave him all the reverence. All the musicians of India retained the ancient Indian tradition of singing the notes, the arrangement of notes, and Saraswati is the goddess of learning, and she is the goddess of music and the arts. They all were devotees of Saraswati, and they said their namaz, which is the Muslim prayer, 5 times a day. So there was this, call it schizophrenia, or call it disarrangement, this compact. This compact fractured to some extent in 1947. It has not yet been recomposed on that scale again.
Let me move us to religion and politics, because quite recently in this country we had a significant development. Calgary, Alberta, which is a big city in Western Canada, elected a Muslim mayor, the first ever big city mayor of Muslim background in Canadian history. It's a big deal here. How possible is it for an Indian Muslim to win elected office in India where the majority of the electorate are not Muslim?
A few facts. The Prime Minister of India happens to be a Sikh, 1% on your figure
Yes.
over there. The leader of the largest and the most powerful party, the Congress Party, happens to be an Italian-born Roman Catholic,
Yes, that's
Sonia
right.
Gandhi.
Right.
The Vice President of India happens to be Hamid Ansari, who's a Muslim. The Speaker of India happens to be from the caste which about 20, 30 years ago would not have been allowed within 20 kilometers of an upper caste house.
So it's a big deal for us, but not so much for you.
It is, no. It is that you can't compare apples and oranges. You're talking about 1 billion people, and you're talking about a country of 40 million here. But this is a remarkable achievement. I personally think if all the white in that sense of the term, if they all applaud this, if they stand behind, full square behind this man, you are seeing the beginning of something new. This is how societies get moderated. This is what is required. So therefore, you may have a little beacon of light there in Calgary in this Muslim, young Muslim mayor whom the whites have elected. This is the problem in India. They keep talking about a Muslim leader. A Muslim will have a Hindu as his leader. A Muslim has a Sikh prime minister as his leader. And the Sikh prime minister may one day have a Muslim as his leader. So you have to knit your society this way. Otherwise, it will fracture. You can't have a Muslim leader in a society which is multi-ethnic.
I did mention a while ago that the Muslim community seemed to be not very radicalized, and I want to follow up on that because 2 years ago there was virtually no anti-Muslim violence in the wake of those terrorist attacks that took place in Mumbai, perpetrated by Islamic radicals. What do you think the response to those terrorist attacks and the recent court ruling as well about Ayodhya, what do you think those say about the state of Hindu-Muslim relations today?
The first one, the Mumbai attacks, is subcontinental in nature. It actually ultimately is anchored in the India-Pakistan story, you see, and I don't want to end up, being a Paki basher in your program because that is not the purpose of this program. But Pakistan has had terrorism exported. This is precisely the problem that your troops are facing in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. You're facing that problem today. Yes. That we have been facing that problem since 1989. Why 1989? Because that is when the Soviets began to leave Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. When they began to leave Afghanistan, they left behind this very radicalized, high voltage Islam looking for work. Mm-hmm. And some of it was redirected towards Kashmir and so. So therefore, the Mumbai attacks are part of that deal. The case of Ayodhya is a different story altogether. Here, mythology and history are coming into conflict.
We should just remind everybody, 1992, dispute over a piece of land in the city of Ayodhya, sacred to Hindus, sacred to Muslims. A riot took place, 2,000 people killed. It was, a terrible tragedy.
Not so many, but yes, people were killed. You see, Hindus believe that that is where Lord Ram was born. Mm-hmm. Muslims believe that that is where yes, he may have been born there, but that is where that mosque was, and rule of law must. You see, the Muslim takes recourse to the rule of law. Mm.
But I want to get your reaction as well. I mean, the court decision, which basically split up the area between the Hindus and the Muslims. How's that being?
You see, that itself is a very interesting. Okay. The Chief Justice, it is the UP High Court. Mm-hmm. UP High Court, the Chief Justice is a man called Roberto Ignatius Rebello. That is the Chief Justice. The bench that was passed judgment on this particular case, the senior judge was Sibqat Ullah Khan, which is a Muslim. Mm-hmm. And then you had two different sects of Hinduism. The matter was tossed up to the Supreme Court, where the Chief Justice today is of Zoroastrian origin. You are talking about Justice Kapadia. And he had in his bench a man called Aftab Alam Khan. So therefore, the experiment in India is enormous. I mean, there are many problems. As I said, everybody is scrambling for that pie, which has just begun to expand, and the Muslim is very much in it, and he is very much below. He has not got his rights yet.
Well, let me see. You say he's below, but is his trajectory up or down?
He is part of the whole political agenda of India, and if this party does not look after him, he will shift his vote and go to that party. So therefore, the electoral box is his ventilation for all his grievances. The basic thing is education. Above all, education of women.
Gotcha. Saeed Naqvi, it's good of you to join us here on TVO tonight. I hope you enjoy the rest of your time here in Canada.
Thank you very much, Steve. I enjoyed being on your show, of which I've heard so much.
Thank you.